Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Bitronistim. IDSF is the leading Israeli organization advocating for strong national security to defend Israel. Thank you, of course, to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. I'm pleased to be joined today by the head of IDSF Research, Or Yissachar. Or, thank you so much for joining.
Great to be here, Moshe.
Or let's just jump right in, start off with the big question everyone is thinking. Iran says they're going to attack, but they have not yet attacked. What's with this waiting game right now?
I think Iran is calculating its moves right now. As someone who researches Iran and speaks the language, I keep track of Iranian media, and I can tell that they are debating what to do just by these very pompous statements. So you have Hossein Salami, the commander of the IRGC, who said we will definitely respond or will respond harshly, and the Zionist entity will learn its lesson. Ahmadian, the head of the Iranian National Security Council, said that we will retaliate and teach the Zionist entity a lesson. You realize they're not saying Israel's name, but they call us with derogatory names like the Zionist entity. You have the supreme leader himself, short time, like really in the hours following the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, political leader of Hamas in the heart of Tehran, uh, explicitly said on Twitter in Persian and in English. He said that the Zionist entity will pay a heavy price, and we are committed to retaliate. Nasrallah, the head of the Secretary General of Hezbollah, said that something very interesting. What he said is that we started off a support campaign of the Palestinians. So we started a campaign in support of the Palestinian cause and to show solidarity with Gaza. Now we switched from attrition into a whole new regional conflict. And I think it's quite funny to say because Israel has been engulfed in a regional war for 10 months now, initiated by Iran and its axis. Um, and you see all the threats coming from Iran, from the senior most positions of the Iranian establishment. Iranian media said this. I mean, the response will be Sakhtar Tulanitar va Ebarat Omiztar. That means like it's going to be harder, it's going to be longer, and it's going to be more, I guess, persistent or harsh than the one on April 14. So they're always comparing it to Vadeh Sadek, the true promise. That's their Quran sentiment nickname that they picked to the April 14 attack on Israel. I'm reminding you 300 missiles and cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and defensive drones launched by Iran into Israel on the night of April 14 as a response to what they claim Israel assassinated a top IRGC commander in the heart of Mehdavi, he's called, senior IRGC commander and other 6 officers in Damascus. They said it was the Iranian embassy. It wasn't. It was an IRGC compound next to the Iranian consulate, but it was, you know, swallowed up in the blur of words and expressions, mixing up consulate and embassy, and it somehow became an international controversy. But right now, we're standing in a position where Iran is committed to retaliate, to respond, to attack Israel from several fronts. You had on Thursday several sources telling American news media that all of the components of the axis of resistance, as they call themselves, will meeting in Tehran, convening in Tehran to discuss. That would be Hamas, Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Houthis in Yemen, all of them consulting with Iran. You had Iranian militias in Iraq who very regularly attack U.S. forces and U.S. bases, publishing pictures of their missiles, saying we are at the ready to attack as per your orders from Tehran. So you see how Iran constructed a whole network of loyal servants, I would say, around the region equipped with Iranian missiles, ready to attack, offensive drones, missiles. And the question is, what are they waiting for? What do they want to do? I think they were mostly humiliated, having Ismail Haniyeh targeted not in Beirut, not in Amman, not in Qatar, in the heart of Tehran, several short hours after the the inauguration of the newly elected Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian. He was very heavily photographed and had his whole, it was very well documented. And just for you to realize, you see pictures from the Iranian Majlis, the Iranian parliament, and you see the newly elected president Pezeshkian. Next to him, usually imagine like the inauguration of the US president. So you have the vice president next to him, maybe his wife, the first lady, you got his family, maybe senior, like top figures from the administration, National Security Council, secretaries, all these like the various members of government. Next to Masoud Pezeshkian, the newly elected Iranian president, sat Naim Qassem, the deputy secretary general of Hezbollah, and Ismail Haniyeh, political leader of Hamas. So just to show you, and all the world leaders that were invited were sitting way, way in the back. Just to show you the extent of commitment that Iran has to its proxies, how it sees itself. The true map of Iran is not just Iran, the country you can see on the map, but it sees itself the entire Middle East, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, all fell to the Iranian trap and became Iranian proxy states or Iranian proxy areas. So I think in that regard, what Israel is bracing now right now is for Iranian attack. You got not only the Israeli military, but also the United States. You had General Kurilla, commander of CENTCOM, visiting here yesterday. You had threats and messages passed directly from the United States to senior Iranian leadership telling them, you don't want to do this. And we'll see. Right now, we're bracing for a response.
Or let me ask you a question. Do you think at this moment, Iran has a strategic interest of actually attacking and trying to destroy Israel? Or their interest is really projecting power and showing that they could attack Israel, projection of power either to Israel or to the US or to Russia or these other Arab states? Meaning, do they really want to attack is the bottom line question right now.
They really do want to attack, and I'm reminding you that over 60 tons of explosives were launched by Iran on April 14 in the True Promise operation, as they call it. Had they not been intercepted, and it's not obvious, we're used to a perfect world where F-35s and Iron Dome, sorry, Arrow 2, Arrow 3, USS warships intercept, really virtually all of these missiles and drones. If 60 tons of explosives were to explode here in Israel, these are missiles that can destroy entire neighborhoods and topple entire, skyscrapers. So this is really not obvious to have almost hermetic defense. And I honestly hope that should the Iranians attack, this will look like this. But I think they mostly want to have a true, to sort of contribute to the formula of deterrence and not to normalize a situation where Israel is just doing whatever the heck it wants and assassinates, according to the Iranians, assassinates nuclear scientists and assassinates Ismail Haniyeh, all in the heart of Tehran. You remember Masoud Fakhrizadeh, the head of the Iranian nuclear program, downed in Iran while driving his car with all of his bodyguards. And so this is very embarrassing for the Iranians. I think what the Iranian media was quoted as saying is that on April 14, we had a show of force, and now we want to use force. So they are determined, they seem to be very, very determined to attack. Various reports said that Iran alerted in advance to the US and other partners and other countries what it's going to do and when it's going to attack, and this time around it's not going to do it. So they sound very, very determined. The thing is this. I don't find this whole situation normal at all. And Iran is a country, member of the United Nations, professing to be a normal country, but it is committed to destroy and annihilate another country. And this is not the case with any other country in the United Nations, maybe Russia against Ukraine, but it is really not the case with anyone else. Now, the Iranian ambassador to the United Nations, the Iranian ambassador tells the United Nations, we're going to attack Israel. Now, Iran, I think, is going on a really, really bad strategy here. Had Iran declared on its intention to construct a balcony in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, then you had an emergency plenary of the UN Security Council. Iran just declared it wishes to destroy Israel, so there's no rush. I mean, it's kind of a surplus to requirement to convene the UN Security Council. So this is really, I mean, what Israel is facing is not just Iranian threats, but the whole, a whole charade of international, I guess, hypocrisy of not wanting to confront Iran and its threats. This should be, in my opinion, our number one priority.
100%, 100%. So I'm curious to know what is the greatest threat to Israel right now? Is it Iran? Is it Hezbollah? What are we most concerned about?
Let's break it down to several components. I think Iran definitely has capabilities that threaten Israel. It has it has long-range ballistic missiles, what we call ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, that can go all the way to space and then land on a target. Some of them are pretty precise. But Israel has Arrow 2, Arrow 3, and it has F-35s who are capable of intercepting offensive drones, cruise missiles that fly relatively low and parallel to the ground. And the US has interception mechanisms such as Patriot missiles and others. Hezbollah, on the other hand, is very close to the border. It has many, I would call it simple rockets that can be shot and fired, in mass. And that's a much, much harder threat to intercept, as well as offensive drones who don't have to cross Iraq and Jordan 2,000 kilometers to get to Israel, but really they're right on the other side of the fence. And I think Hezbollah is believed to be holding several hundred, if not more, precision-guided missiles. Even if Israel has great interception mechanisms, none of it is hermetic. And I'm assuming that if they want to aim at strategic Israeli targets, I would think at power plants or ports or government facilities or military bases and all these things. So technically, they are capable of doing it, but I don't know that they will do it this time. Two things I should say about it. One is that not only Israel is ready with interceptions and thwarting, but the whole region is involved. So you have a situation where on April 14, first time that system was tried. It's called MEAD, the Middle East Air Defense. And you have really, as a result of the Abraham Accords, Israel being part of the of CENTCOM, the United States Central Command of the U.S. military. So what you have with a wink and a nod is Arab countries colluding with Israel. Let's put it very, very simply. You got Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, UAE, many partners in the region, even Egypt, who announced that they will not let the Iranians or the proxies use their airspace, and reportedly even collaborated with a wink and a nod on the night of April 14, providing information, radar movements, all these things, allowing Israel to use their airspace to intercept these missiles, all these things. And to be honest, number two, not only the other side is capable of attacking, Israel is capable of attacking as well. Israel and the United States have far, far superior capabilities than those of Iran and Hezbollah. And they should understand that, because Israel reportedly already passed messages through intermediators that in any case of attack, or if we have precision intelligence on attack, we reserve the right to carry out a preemptive strike. And Iran should know, and Lebanon should know, it would be targeting your own strategic installations, your own military bases, your own nuclear program, your own power plants, your own oil fields. You will not be spared. So I honestly suggest Iran and its proxies not to try the capabilities of Israel and the United States. But meanwhile, I think the preference is to calm and not to lead to escalation. But let's see where this goes.
So I want to push back for a second, if I can. You're saying that Hezbollah has many capabilities that they may not exercise because Israel will push back hard. So my question to you would be, is there ever a scenario in the future where Hezbollah, Iran, and they just say, like, now is the day, we're going to attack with everything, regardless of what happens? And if such a day exists, so what's preventing it from being this week? Meaning, what's different now than could be in the future? Is it a nuclear Iran? Like, what is that tipping point where all of these countries or all of these Iranian proxies say, now we're ready to go?
No, they have a strategy. They have a strategy, and they don't want to, we call it in Hebrew, react from the stomach. They are kind of rational, and they have a strategy, and they think, unlike us, they think 1,000 years forward and not 10 hours forward. If Israel has a rare strategic cabinet meeting thinking one day forward, we call it strategy. Iran has really 1,000-year vision to Islamize and Shiaize, if you may use this word, make the entire Middle East Shiite, and have really instill Iranian hegemony all over the Middle East. And they have patience and they have time, and they don't need to execute it right now. That's how they reached, the point where they are in nuclear threshold state. Iran, I'm reminding you also what Secretary Blinken said, what the IAEA said, that it has sufficient amount of 60% and 20% enriched uranium. It can just decide to build a nuclear bomb, and it will do it very, very fast. It can reach sufficient amount of fissile material, like enriched uranium, to reach one bomb within 1 to 2 weeks from the moment of decision. So it's not as if they are not capable anymore. They are, what they lack is not a capability, but it's just a matter of willingness and decision. But they have a vision, and they'll do it in the appropriate time for them. We feared the sort of a button-pushing scenario. If on October 7 everyone would attack at the same time, I think Israel would be quite harshly hit. Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, militias in Syria and Iraq, Palestinians in Sudan and Samaria, the Houthis, that would be quite a challenge. Right now, Israel is at the ready, and it is in a very, very high alert mode. There can be no higher alert mode than that. So the element of surprise is gone. Hezbollah knows that the element of surprise is gone. We have several brigades in the northern front. We have interception missiles ready to go. We have US support. Everyone understands the situation, so they might not choose to do it right now. They also quite enjoy, I gotta tell you, the position of threatening. We learned from Russia in Ukraine that sometimes it's good just to threaten, not to make good on your threat, because everybody can see in full scale, the scale of Russian capability. They inflicted quite a damage on Ukraine, especially in the first few months, very, very harshly. They caused thousands of deaths and not tens or hundreds of thousands of deaths, casualties. But at the end of the day, they haven't conquered Ukraine in a few weeks like they anticipated of doing. And the Ukrainians are beating them in some fronts, in some cases, with simple, Amazon-style battlefield technology of little explosive boats and attack drones who are fighting entire divisions and entire warships. Needless to say, without US support, they wouldn't be able to do it. But I'm deviating a little bit. Let me backtrack. I'm just saying that the Hezbollah is quite enjoying, and Iran is quite enjoying the position where they're threatening. On April 14, they made good on their threat and launched missiles on Israel, and they saw virtually 100% of them were intercepted. So they were exposed with their dangerousness, but also with their weakness. You see, they were both dangerous and weak. So I think a great lesson from that would be not being deterred from the Iranian threats and using their weakness to attack. I think a great lesson from all these events is that Israel and the United States should attack first and carry out a preemptive strike, totally destroy the Iranian nuclear program, totally destroy the Iranian ballistic missile program, and maybe even threaten to hit the oil fields, which are 40% of Iranian economy. You roll on your money, and if your cash is drained out, you're in a problem, my friend. So I think they really should understand that. Bashar al-Assad should understand it in Syria. If he tries to collude, that's the end of him. And I think it's just time to understand whom we're dealing with here. Like in terms of an Iranian campaign all around the Middle East, using their proxies against Israel. This is something the world should understand.
Thank you, Or. And I want to thank all of our viewers who send in the questions in the chat in our Zoom or send them to me in emails and WhatsApps. And again, as I mentioned yesterday, if you're watching us on Zoom, please help us out by sharing the link to the Zoom briefings with family, friends, anyone you know, to help us really get the truth out at this critical time. And if you're watching us on YouTube, consider subscribing to our channel and sharing it there as well. We are providing so much critical information at a time when there's a lot of media out there providing things that are not always so accurate. Or there's a question I'm getting repeatedly, both in the chat and in my email, so I'm going to ask it too because people want to know the answer. The 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, is a significant day in the Jewish calendar, and many of our viewers are asking, you know, it's a day that marks calamity and destruction in the Jewish history. Many of our viewers are asking if the Iranians are aware of the significance of Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, which again falls out next week, and would potentially plan an attack. You know, the extent to which they pick a Yom Kippur, they pick a Simchat Torah, would they pick a 9th of Av to attack Israel?
I can't put my finger on a specific date. I did read this report. I did read all these reportings. I read all sorts of reportings, and from various sources, Arab, Persian, Israeli, American. I can't tell you that. It sounds very dramatic and, let's say, appropriate in their case. But it's also building up expectation, don't you think? I mean, if they launch such an attack and utterly fail, unlike the destruction of the first and second temple, if these guys fail right now, that would not be a very appropriate, event in the chain of symbolic events in that time. Let's see.
For sure. Okay. And then in terms of the need for Iran to save face and really show that you can't just strike us. So how does it play out in terms of a proxy attack through Hezbollah and the Houthis or Iran direct? Meaning, is it necessary for whatever comes from Iran to be the major event and the Hezbollah the secondary, or it doesn't matter because everyone understands they're all the same?
No, I think, well, I don't think we should underestimate the capabilities of Hezbollah, sort of a second best to Iran. Bear in mind, whatever Hezbollah has, Iran provided or taught them how to develop. This is really an Iranian affiliate, you can call it, in Lebanon, and which took hold of the country of Lebanon. And that's why I think that Israel should change its formula and not limit itself to the organization called Hezbollah, but target the country of Lebanon. Because I think that many Lebanese disagree with Hezbollah, for sure, but we got to a point where the country of Lebanon is subjugated to the needs of Hezbollah. There are members of cabinet, government, parliament. They essentially dictate to the Lebanese army what to do with their moves. And Lebanon takes marching orders from Hezbollah, and I think that the entire region is taking marching orders from Hezbollah in terms of the militias and countries who are subjugated to it. Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, doomed. And then militias all over the place. And I wouldn't underestimate Hezbollah. They have precision-guided missiles. Iran might have ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, with larger warheads and explosives, but I wouldn't discount that at all.
Thank you. And how would you say does Russia factor into all of this?
Well, what we saw yesterday was kind of interesting because we saw while the U.S. General Kurilla, Four-Star General, who was the commander of the U.S. Central Command, U.S. CENTCOM, visiting Israel, meeting with the Israeli Chief of Staff, General Halevi, then meeting with the Israeli Minister of Defense, Yoav Gallant. At the same time, you had the Russian head of National Security Council visiting Tehran to discuss and consult his homologue, as they say, his counterparts. What I think is going on here is far, far wider than an Israel-Gaza war, Israel-Hezbollah war, some sort of tensions between Iran and Israel. We're talking about a new Cold War here. Okay? And I think that the way to look at it, the appropriate way to look at it, is that Ukraine and Israel are simply, pawns. They're simply the frontline theater in this, the frontline row, I would say, in this great theater called the New Cold War. And I think the Russians understand that. I think the United States understands that, maybe not sufficiently, in my opinion. Not everyone in the United States, not everyone in Europe understand that, and it's about time they do, because what we're witnessing right now is really an attempt by Russia to fully add Iran to its axis. So what do I mean by that? I mean, if until now all we saw is simply Russian support to Iran, and generally the Russian traditional way of looking at things is that, well, we're not committed to any party. We're in touch with Israel, we're in touch with Russia, we're in touch with Hamas, we're in touch with Qatar, with the US. We kind of talk with everyone, and we, at the end of the day, safeguard our own interests first. The main thing is that nobody invades our homeland. We create this belt, or you can call it Finlandization. We can create the belt of slave or affiliated satellite states. And the main thing is that nobody invades our own homeland. And it's totally different ballgame right now. I mean, right now, what Russia is doing is to really forming a new axis, Russia, China, and Iran, adding other countries like Venezuela, maybe South Africa, BRICS countries, and others to really form a new alliance. And, you know, if before October 7, Israel could sort of talk to Russia about maybe we should avoid supplying Iran with this weapon or that air defense system and sort of delay it, and Netanyahu and Putin would meet, and then Netanyahu would file it to Washington, and then to Moscow, and then to Europe, and then back to Israel. This is very hard to believe to be happening. They're very far-fetched right now. I think the Russians right now are all in the game. If Israel was kind of careful not to be on top of the list of the Russians and not fully overtly support the Ukrainian cause, right now what we see is the Russia kind of cannot go back to what it was. It is fully committed to Iran, fully committed to China, and battling the West with all the sanctions imposed on it. Really don't think it has a choice as far as it's concerned. And again, we're facing a new Cold War here, where Israel, Ukraine, and others are simply the front line in this big theater. And I think when we look at it from a wide perspective, we see what kind of situation Israel finds itself in.
Or Yissachar, head of IDSF research, thank you for sharing all of that. It's a great pleasure to speak with you, to learn from you. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. here in Israel. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.